Good morning, quilt people and seekers of the world. How are you? I am very happy to be here Monday morning. It's super early. So let's get started. Today's topic, ending self-judgment. Remember in the first series of videos that I did up until this point, it was really ending judgment on the world. Ending judgment and attachment on everything that was outside of us. Where I am in the work right now is understanding that anything outside of us is a false god. And anything that you give power to that's outside of yourself, right, is a false god. That's you giving your power away to something outside of yourself, right? And that's where we lose all our power, right? So the first part of this video series, right, was in finding where we are in space and time. Finding how to be seated in self and seated in self only. Not putting ourselves out into the world. Not attaching to that which is outside of us, right? And know that the only thing that we can do is work on ourselves. That's the only power that we have. In that last video, I'm continually amazed at where I am in the work right now and how that grounds us in our feelings, in our truth. And sometimes those feelings and that truth is anger, is it not? There are times in which we, in this earthly experience and on this earthly plane, should be experiencing anger. There are things that happen in this world that are anger-inducing. When you evolve past all that that's out there, all that is not you, and you become fully seated in self and viewing the world as having one job and one job only, which is to inform us of where we are, right? While still viewing the world behind the lens of the ego, we can't help but attach judgment to a thing. It's just the job of the ego, right? That's how it works. And so while we're behind the lens of the ego, we tend to also judge ourselves. When you evolve past the ego and into the I am, right, that judgment on self disappears. And the most surprising thing in that whole evolution of self is that you're granted access to your own anger without attaching any type of judgment to that, right? Like you're allowed to be angry if that's how you truly and honestly feel in the moment. If you can, from behind the lens of love, and this is where we get really thrown off because we think that love should always be happiness and joy and light and pleasure and all these things, right? We don't ever want to see ourselves as devolving into anger because we have a judgment on what anger is, right? But to be standing in I am and not have the access to judgment on anyone or yourself, it really harnesses the power of anger, right? Because there's a whole lot of energy found in anger. And I'm learning how to use that in a way to propel myself through my day. Am I having a day where I'm just, I just don't feel like it and I just don't want to do it and it's just like whatever, blah, blah, blah. On those days when I can reconnect to my mission and I can reconnect to a little bit of my own personal anger around like that stuff, which I clearly have lots of. Oh, she's angry again. Oh, good. She's yelling at the Christians again. Oh, good. And everyone's at home like, I thought we moved past that. Nope. Right? Because I still have a lot of things that are not acceptable to me in this world, right? Like institutionalized homophobia will never be okay with me. I don't care how you package it up. It won't be okay. And the way that I have been treated in this lifetime, like the bigotry that I have been served by my own family, right? Them being the worst that I've ever experienced in terms of homophobia. Like the worst homophobia I've ever experienced in my lifetime has been served to me by my family members. That's just fact. That's just been my life, right? The difference now with my anger is that I'm not working against someone, right? Whereas before, my anger was very much directed at the anger of institutionalized bigotry, right? And I was working against that institutionalized bigotry and hate. The evolution of that for me inside, right? Because you can have whatever you want in life. You can have and be whatever you want, so long as you're okay with living with that inside your container. Does your container deserve anger? Gosh, it's a tricky thing, right? And again, it's not until we evolve past the ego where we stop placing judgment on our own personal anger, but rather find a purpose and a use for it. Allow my anger to serve the world. To allow my anger to be fuel, right? And the difference is this. I no longer am working against the Christians. In fact, I will work very much with the Christians and people of faith communities to evolve past institutionalized homophobia. I'll work with anybody, right? So long as we're all heading in the same direction and trying to change the thing, right? Rather than trying to carve out a gray area in the bigotry, right? So long as we're all working towards ending hate, then I'm on board. I'm on board with anybody. But when you evolve past the ego and you're seated in self and you can look at your anger and say, why is this here? What purpose is this serving me? And should it still be here? What we lose in this world is our access to know, because our judgment on our own anger says we shouldn't have it, right? We judge ourselves for being angry when there are very much times you should be angry. And so we're always trying to tamp down our own personal expression and experience in this world. I shouldn't be angry. I should be loving. What if love could also be angry? Because you will always have access to a no, to a oh hell no, so long as it's delivered with one thing, and that's compassion. So long as your no still sees the humanity in the other to whom you are saying it to, it is valued, it is granted, it is of worth, and you should not lose your access to know. Ending self-judgment. That's where it's all at for me right now. Ending my own personal judgment on myself for feeling my feelings that are honest and true. I can't have a judgment on myself around that stuff anymore. If I'm angry, I'm angry, right? There's a lot of unacceptable things that have happened to me in my lifetime, right? That I get to say, thank you, no more. Thank you, no more. I'm not a person who tolerates that. So in discovering our own personal power that is seated behind our own anger, right? First of all, we have to look at it like, is this anger valid? Do I need to change it? Is this a boundary that I'm holding out of old programming? Or is this a boundary that I'm holding because it serves the world? My anger serves the world. My anger lives in service to love, right? My anger lives in wanting to protect future queer generations of kids who don't deserve to be raised in faith communities where they are told that the Word of God says they are an abomination to this existence. They should not exist because they are an abomination in the eyes of God. That's what the Bible says. And it can't say that anymore. It can't say that about me. It can't say that about my relationship, about my marriage. My marriage is holy. You try and undermine that and you will hear from me. My anger exists around that for a very real reason. Right? This stranglehold of white supremacy and puritanical thought systems where sex is bad and you're a bad person if you like sex or have sex or what? Anger, sex, these are all things that are given to us by Creator, and we cannot have a judgment on creation, right? That's where all of our suffering comes from. All your suffering comes from one place. Holding a judgment on God's plan. All your suffering comes from there. Holding a judgment on what is. Because what is the expression of God. What is God's plan. And we walk through the world and we look at what is, and we're like, yeah, that's not right, and that's not right, and that's not right. The evolution of self happens when you stop walking through the world going, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right, and you move from the judgment on that to the curiosity in here. Why is that happening in God's world? Why is God delivering me that? I wonder what's behind here. And so you shift from judgment, 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 which makes us all miserable, to curiosity. Why is this happening? Because you know that if it's happening, it is happening as a part of God's plan, and we do not get to hold a judgment on that. Because to do that would be to place yourself in the position of God, in the position of creator of everything that's going on. And we're not that. We're far from that, right? Our job is to be an expression of God, right? Does God get angry? Depends who you ask, I guess. Or is God just an expression of love? Or does God have an expression of love that also looks like anger? Being the quiet one in the room is not always the most loving thing to do. Sometimes it's not what you do. Sometimes it's what you don't do. Like participating in institutionalized bigotry and hate in a casual way. Know your anger. Know why it exists, and know where that boundary is for you. Take a look at it. Does it need to be updated? Or does it serve a very real purpose? Should you be angry? Can you be angry from a place of compassion towards others who just don't know better because they're learning? The worst people in the world are the ones who are most loudly crying for love. Now, that doesn't mean you have to put up with their shit. Dale, don't do that. Hey. Right? Find the place of love within yourself that exists beyond judgment of others, but most certainly that exists beyond judgment of yourself. Lay down that cross. Liberate yourself from your own judgment. Liberate yourself from judgment on the world that's making you unhappy. But rather, understand understand the four basic principles that we have arrived to in here. The first one being, is there a God? Is there something that's behind all of this, or is it just chance, right? Is there an intelligence to creation? I believe there is. Question number 2. Is the intelligence of the universe benevolent? I believe it is. Because it can't be indifferent, and it can't be punishing if what we're seeing and looking all around us is not those things, right? Is God indifferent? Only you can answer that. Is there an intelligence of the universe? Yes. Is that intelligence benevolent? Yes. So would that intelligence of the universe allow for you to be divinely protected and divinely guided? Yes. And yes, you're not God. You are an extension of God on earth. You are consciousness of God, created by God, right? The consciousness that we experience in order to better understand ourselves on this plane is God-given. Know that. Sit in that. You are divinely guided and you are divinely protected on your own say-so. But you gotta say so, right? Like there has to be some participation of you in the way of trust that those things are true. I'm not asking for faith, I'm asking for trust. Trust that there is an intelligence of the universe, that it is benevolent, and that is protecting you, and that it is guiding you. Sit in that. Stop trying to play God. Stop making yourself miserable with your own anger and judgment. Right? But to get back to the anger part, right? Once you evolve past ego of seeing things as good and bad and right and wrong, and there is no bad guy, and that every human you come across is doing their very best, and that it's just our job to help them along their way, right? And some of those people that we're helping along the way will be anger-inducing, because they will do things that completely cross your personal boundaries, like be homophobic, right? But it's in that clarity. It's in the clarity of self and love that exists beyond the ego, where there is no good or bad or right and wrong. Like that whole paradigm shift, we can't even imagine, right? In a world where we're taught good and evil, if the evil just went away and we're just left with the good all the time, and we all just vibrate with high vibration words only. But we're not there yet, are we? Right? And so sometimes you have to get big, right? Sometimes love asks of us to say no. No. Know that you always have access to that no, so long as it's delivered with compassion. I have a very real mission statement in here. And I've struggled with it because I've held judgment on it. Even though it is derived from a place of love, I still have judgment on my own mission statement because we've been programmed in this world to not allow ourselves to become enraged or angry. We hold judgment on ourselves when we get angry. At least I do. Right? Like, oh, I should just be peace and light and love, right? But then you have to deal in the real world and people are like, oh, your humanity? Yeah, it's really worth nothing. Let's just keep on moving. What? Beep, beep, beep. No. That doesn't work. Especially as we evolve as a society. Especially as we evolve to a higher place where we no longer interact with puritanical, punishing thought forms. Right? People are sexual. You should be sexual. There's a whole bunch of learning for your own personal evolution that can be found in the realm of sex only. What are you learning there? There's so much learning, at least for me there has been, in that realm. And you don't get to tell me that that's bad or that that hasn't been given to me by God. It has been. And any judgment you have on anything that's happening around here, right? That's a you thing, and it's making you miserable, right, until you evolve past it. But again, I'm so shocked at how evolving past the ego gives you back access to a healthy anger. It really does. Like, it's so surprising to me. And when you're seated in the great I am, and you're languaging your life behind I am, and you can say, I am angry. This does cross my personal boundary. You may not be homophobic and expect me to just go along with it. No. From the beginning, I have been working for the mental health of future generations of queer kids. Like, I see them, I know them, I was one of them. I know what that feels like, and I'm going to say no more. No more. If you're a faith community that says they're rooted in love, maybe show it. Maybe start. Right? Because this religious, toxic heteronormativity, right, that they all function with, where heterosexual is better than homosexual, right, where, my family won't come to my wedding because I'm marrying a guy instead of a girl, like, all this religious-based hate and this puritanical nonsense, right, it's gotta go. It's gotta go. Now, when it comes to my own personal anger and my own personal mission statement, I just need to get clear on, is that a fight I want to pick? Because it's not one I have to pick, because faith communities will come to that reckoning on their own, with or without me. Like, I don't need to get into the trenches with it. Like, the Christians are sorting themselves out. And I believe that everybody is doing their best. Love is self-evident. So is hate, right? And it's finding the balance, I think, between hate, right, and just saying no, right? Hate has a real, that shouldn't be that way, so it's tethered to the ego, right? It shouldn't be that way. That's a judgment, right? But anger that lives in, I am angry because this crosses my personal boundary, and you can still stay clean in that anger and deliver a, oh hell no, not on my watch, from a place of compassion, then you'll always be clean. But we don't see enough examples of that in our world. We don't see enough examples of a no being delivered from a place of love. Anybody who's been a parent or even babysat understands how to deliver a no from a place of love rather than a place of anger. Focus on that. Don't give away your no. Again, being rooted in my mission statement of helping the mental health of queer kids being raised in faith communities. How do I do that without judgment? Without judgment on me, without judgment on them, right? Because there's still a whole lot of, oh no, that won't work, that needs to be messaged and delivered to people who are participating in that which harms others. You can't participate in that which harms others and be clean, right? Sometimes, again, it's not what you do, it's what you don't do. And sometimes taking a casual approach to that which is harming others in your society can't stand. So that's where we are today. Are you angry? Is that anger valid? Do you hold a judgment on yourself for being angry? Because you don't have to. If your anger is valid and it exists for a reason, especially a reason of love, right? My anger exists and lives in service to love, of knowing what queer kids are being put through in faith communities when they find out in their Bibles that it says that they shouldn't exist. I know what that's like. And I think that was probably the first time in my life as a young person where my heart was broken. I was a good Christian kid, right? And then I find out that their religion says I can't exist, that I'm an abomination in the eyes of God. No, that doesn't work. Because we now live in an America where businesses and corporations can legally, per the Supreme Court, deny service to gay people. Never in our history did I think I would see something like that. Can we legally deny service to black people or Jews if it's an affront to our personal expression? Where does this all go? There's a whole lot of no that needs to be delivered. Find where your power is. It is rooted in I am. I am angry. I am angry. You get to be. And you don't get to hold a judgment on yourself if that anger is founded, true, honest, and living in service to love. That's where we are today. I hope that you're doing well. I hope that was helpful, and I will see you next time. All right, bye.